What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Lexie. I will put my Instagram below, but thank you for choosing to tune in to my video today. So back by popular demand, I am doing another shit they don't tell you video. So if you are new here and you have not checked out my previous shit they don't tell you videos, check those out. Essentially, it's a series I started just kind of shedding light and, kind of talking more about like the raw, the real, the things people don't necessarily talk a ton about when it comes to bikini prep, bikini competitions, and just the competing world in general. I am a competitor myself. I'm a bikini competitor. I'm also a coach, and I coach bikini competitors, and I absolutely love this sport, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like there are a lot of areas that a lot of people just don't talk about, and not necessarily that they're bad, but I just want to be that person that actually talks about things rather than like keeping them on the DL. So in today's shit they don't tell you video, I am talking about post-show. So I do have a shit they don't tell you about off-season video from I think like a month or two ago, but specifically today I'm going to be talking about shit they don't tell you about post-show, meaning those like first initial maybe few days, few weeks post-show. So specifically what I'm going to be talking about is, when okay, this is my last show of the season, I'm going to be talking about that time frame. I know some competitors out there will do multiple shows in a row. I have been one of them. So I'm more specifically talking about like when you finish your last show of the season and kind of navigating those next couple of days and weeks after that show, because there is a lot that goes on within those days. And what I hope is that from watching this video, either you may be a first-time competitor and hopefully you kind of learn some things and just know what to expect, because I feel like if you know what to expect, you're going to be better prepared to handle what's coming at you. And then B, if you are a fellow competitor who has competed before, hopefully you listen to this and you just feel like a little bit less alone, and you feel like, oh my gosh, everything she's saying, like I have felt that too. I'm not alone. I'm normal. Right? So I have a list next to me on my computer so I don't forget. So the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to shit they don't tell you post-show is you may or may not feel a little depressed afterwards. And everybody experiences it to a different degree. Not everybody is going to experience this, but I know personally for me, my last show was in 2021, August 2021, it was the Tampa Pro. And I remember waking up the next morning and just kind of feeling a little like sad and down, knowing that like, yeah, it was my last show of the season, and you glamorize and you work so hard for this one show, and then for it to be over, it's like kind of sad, right? It's like you're kind of just mourning. And again, this may not be the case for everybody. I just know I experienced this kind of wave of like emotion, the morning after my last show of the season, and I was just like, oh wow, like what, now what? Now what do I have to work towards? Which sounds silly, but I think a lot of competitors generally go through that phase right after their show. Okay, so the next thing is post-show, you may or may not have a little bit of like an adrenaline dump. I personally have never been somebody that like goes into the gym the day after my show and puts all my post-show food to good use and has a good gym or has a good workout. I am always somebody that's actually pretty tired for like the next day or two after my show, and I think why it is because it's like all of that adrenaline, all of those nerves leading up to your show, and then on show day, and then sometimes it just like hits you. Like I actually got sick after my last show, so I think that sometimes we expect to like feel super normal right after our show because okay, we're going to be starting a reverse diet, so I'm going to feel super normal right off the bat. But a lot of times it's not the case. It may take a couple of days or even a week for you to feel like kind of normal and like you've got your jive back again. So that's number 2 on shit they don't tell you about post show. Again, that may not be something everybody experiences. I just know I have experienced it. Okay, the third thing about the shit they don't tell you about post-show, and I can speak as an athlete, but also a client myself with this thing, and it is, I find that a lot of competitors experience kind of, we'll call it an identity crisis post-show, whereas, you've been known as being the bikini competitor who's super shredded, who's prepping for, a show. That's kind of been your identity, right? For the past, maybe 12 to 20 plus weeks. And a lot of times that's what we showcase on our social media, we're X weeks out, or we just showcase that that's what we're working towards. And so people associate us with being being a bikini competitor or just a competitor, whether or not, you're in bikini or not. And also they associate us with the fact that like, oh, she's prepping, right? So I think sometimes we feel a little lost after, okay, I competed. Now I'm not, in preparation for a show. Are people gonna like care about me anymore? And as silly as that sounds, I think a lot of people watching probably resonate with this, because oftentimes the posts that get the best traction are the ones where, we're shredded or we're, our stage pictures, right? But I think that it is a common fear for a lot of competitors to worry, like post show, oh my gosh, are people gonna like care to even like follow me anymore or, pay attention to me? Like, who am I now that I am not even in prep? And that's a very valid mindset that I've experienced as a competitor, but I've also had a lot of my clients experience that as well. And I'm just saying it and putting it out there because I want you guys to know, like, it's completely normal. And, you'll get over it. Eventually you'll feel a lot better. But sometimes that first week or two, or even a couple weeks post show, it can be a struggle, having that kind of like, I'll call it identity crisis. So that's number 3. Number 4 on shit they don't tell you about post show kind of goes along with what I just said. You may feel like you're like kind of mourning a loss, just because, you go from literally your life revolving around this show day and around your prep, around getting your cardio in, around, doing all this stuff, right? Whereas then, that's not to say the week after your show, it's the complete opposite. But as you slowly start to phase out of that prepping phase, you're going to find that like, okay, I have more time. I'm not doing, hours and hours of cardio, or, oh my gosh, I have more like flexibility with my food. And so sometimes, going from one extreme and then kind of phasing out of that, it can feel weird. It can feel like, oh my gosh, like everything I've been doing for the last 12 plus weeks, like it's, it's so different now. So, so that's something that like I kind of experienced, and I just kind of call it like, you kind of feel like you're mourning a loss. I don't know. That's kind of the best way I can kind of like, explain it. But the next thing that I want to talk about is the food aspect. So you guys probably, saw this one coming, but I do notice that, and I'm not saying everybody experiences this, but a lot of people struggle with their food post show. That's why I strongly recommend having a plan in place with your coach, like before your show day, like know what macros you're gonna hit on, that Monday after your show. Like have a plan in place, because if you compete and then like you don't have a plan afterwards, it could be very, very hard to stay on track, and it could just be a slippery slope from there. Especially some girls have to get very, very low macro wise, or very, very low calorie, where they feel so restricted and deprived by their show day, and then bam, show day hits, the post-show treats come on, and they just can't stop eating. So I think it's very important to have a post-show plan in place with your coach, and to know, to be careful with your choices post-show. I'm all for enjoying like some treats after your show and maybe the Sunday afterwards, but have a good game plan in place for where you're going to start back up come Monday, because if you don't, you may, potentially be somebody that kind of carries like, all of your goodies that you have on Sunday onto Monday and then through the week, right? And then what happens is you start to feel really, crummy, not only like mentally, but physically, when you're putting all of that food in your system all at once that your body has not had in like so long. Your digestion is going to take a toll. You're probably going to feel bloated. You're just going to feel gross. And then you're going to like start beating yourself up. I see it happen all the time with competitors. So that's why I always recommend have a post-show game plan in place when it comes to food, with your coach. And also, as a competitor, know that as you properly reverse diet out of a show, week by week, it will get easier. You'll get more food, you'll get more of your like freedom and balance back, but it just takes time, right? And the reason you don't want to just immediately, like after your show, just eat everything in sight for the next week, for the weeks on end, is because your metabolism is also very sensitive at that point too. So if you eat a ton of food right off the bat and just kind of, shut that prep switch off and just go to eating whatever you want for a long period of time, you're probably going to gain a lot of body weight back a little too quickly, if that makes sense. So that's one thing I wanted to touch on. I also wanted to touch on, having that kind of mental battle with seeing yourself kind of come off of being stage lean and seeing that scale go up. So those of you watching, I think we all know that being stage lean is not sustainable. It is not a sustainable look for most people, or pretty much anybody, to walk around looking like 24/7, every day out of the year. And I think we all know that, like, okay, we compete and we're gonna have to see ourselves gain a little bit of body fat back. But I think sometimes, as much as we know that that's gonna happen, it can be very hard for myself even too to see that number go up, because you're praised for so long on seeing new lows on the scale and for seeing that number go down, and then to automatically kind of be seeing the opposite, you're like, oh, this isn't right. But then again, you have to remind yourself, no, this is right. Like, this is supposed to be happening, right? But I think that every competitor struggles with this. Like, I don't know any competitor out there who doesn't struggle a little bit to some degree with seeing that scale weight go up, and know that that's normal. That's why I think it's really important to have a coach on your side to give you that objective viewpoint, because, even coming out of a show, prep goggles are still real, and you've been so used to seeing yourself so lean for so long that your vision is kind of distorted. So you need somebody to help guide you along and to also reassure you that, like, yes, this is healthy weight gain. This is supposed to be happening. But I also think that, and I could make a whole other video on this. I think that's why it's important to kind of, focus your wins on gaining your strength back in the gym. So rather than validating a win off of, oh my gosh, new low weigh in on the scale, validate wins on, oh my gosh, I'm getting stronger in the gym. I hit a new PR. That can kind of deviate your energy elsewhere, rather than fixating on the scale. So that is one huge thing about the shit they don't tell you post-show. It's just that attachment and detaching from, from being stage lean, from that number on the scale. And I think you just have to recognize and know before you compete that, hey, this is gonna be my stage look, but this is not the look I can carry on and sustain long-term. And if you're not ready for that, you may want to, work on things a little bit before you actually do endure a contest prep and compete. Okay, so next thing is gonna be, the next thing on my list of shit they don't tell you about post-show is gonna be hunger cues are gonna probably be all over the place. And what I mean by this is, as you slowly reverse diet out of your show, so as your coach slowly adds back in food, you may find that you're 10 times hungrier than you were on prep, even though you're eating more food. And I know it sounds super weird, but believe me, if you're a competitor out there and you're watching this, you're probably like, oh my gosh, yes, I resonate with that. I know coming out of my show, reverse dieting was almost harder. I felt hungrier, believe it or not, even though I was eating so much more than I was on prep. I don't really know how to explain the science behind it, but it is a real thing. Sometimes you're eating more and you're like, why am I so hungry? But eventually, push through the first couple weeks, anywhere from 1 to 5, 6 weeks of that reverse diet, and your hunger hormones will start to level off. You have to just remember, prep is a major stressor on your body, and it's gonna take a little bit of time to come out of that, right? You're not just gonna compete and then feel completely normal the week after that. It's gonna take some time to slowly reverse out of that and feel normal again. So that is one thing, that is, something on my list of shit they don't tell you about post-show. You may be super ravenous, even though you're eating a lot more coming out of your show. So just stick with it. Know that that does subside, with time, but just something to be prepared for. Okay, so 2 last things on my list. First is going to be, sometimes you're gonna feel just not very motivated. You're gonna be like, okay, the hype of show day is over, now what? And I think that that's very normal to not feel very motivated afterwards. But that's why I think it's super important to set some new goals for yourself that are not stage related. So most of the time, I would hope everybody out there competes and gets feedback from the judges. So take that feedback from the judges, whatever it may be, and ask yourself, what do I need to do to improve next time before I'm on stage? And use that to fuel your new goals. Because I do get it can be very just hard sometimes after your show to feel motivated to want to do anything, because you don't really have that show day lingering in front of you anymore to work towards. But at the end of the day, you have to take the initiative to set your own goals after that, whether it be strength goals, whether it be, it could be just life goals too, but you should set some new goals for yourself. That way you can keep that motivation firing and not, not feel like you are completely out of motivation. But at the end of the day, let's be honest, this is kind of my tough love coming out. You can't just do things when you're motivated, right? But last thing on my list of shit they don't tell you about post-show is going to kind of go along with what I just said, but you may find that you are somebody who just struggles with adherence issues. I find a lot of times with like clients that, you know, when they're not in prep mode, they have a hard time hitting their macros or going to the gym and doing their cardio because, you know, there's no longer that show date that they're working towards. So it's like you justify sometimes, oh, okay, well, I'll just not track today, or it's okay, I'll miss a cardio session because like I'm not prepping, it's okay. But what happens is when you start to do that, you start to justify things more and more and more, and then it becomes a really big issue, like you can't stick to your plan at all. And I always tell athletes, like, where your stage physique is built is in your improvement season. So you should look at your improvement season when you're not prepping. You should look at that as being just as, if not more important than your actual prep. Your prep is just revealing what you've built in your improvement season, right? Even though prep seems like where all the magic is happening because you're leaning out, all you're really doing is peeling back that layer of body fat, revealing the muscle that you have built in your improvement season. So that's always something I like to relay to like my clients and also remind myself of is, you know, anytime I feel like just kind of playing like loosey-goosey and doing whatever I want, you know, in my improvement season, I always remind myself, Lexie, yes, you know, this is a time where you're going to have more balance, right? Like I'm all for that. However, you still have to have a routine. You still have to get done, you know, your non-negotiables, because this right now, this improvement season is where your physique, your future physique that's going to be revealed on stage is built. So that's always something to keep in mind. But that wraps up the list I actually wrote on my computer for all of the shit they don't tell you about post-show. So again, I really hope this video was just like enlightening or just entertaining for some of you guys. If you can resonate with anything I said at all, please comment below. I'd love to hear like what you guys struggle with post-show. But please share this video if you enjoyed it. If you guys like my Shit They Don't Tell You series about bikini prep, go back. I'll link all of the future ones I've done in the comment section below or in the description box. But as always, thank you guys for listening. If you've made it this far in the video, hopefully I've helped you guys kill some time with your cardio if you're doing your cardio. But follow me on Instagram, tag me if you watch this video, give this video a thumbs up, and I will catch you guys in the next one.